Well, my gentlemen, wasn't that an interesting pay-per-view? It was such drama, much excitement. So Rumble. Was it not Omega BR? Was it not Omega BR?
Yeah.
Alright. So we're going to tell you how we really feel about the Royal Rumble and other things surrounding that. Welcome to WrestleMania season, folks. This is episode 104. Let's go.
Quiet down shadow. Back to wall, to track down blue. You'll be good at that inside if you only listen to. Whoa, get serious. Oh, whoa, get serious. Oh, whoa, get serious.
Gotta love crazy chicks.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode number 104 of Ruby Serious. My name is Gunner and that is Omega BR.
Awesome. Alright. 90...
Where are we going?
7 of people interrupting me.
Also joining us this week.
And also, me not knowing what the heck Gunner's trying to do in the intro.
Do we ever know what Gunner's trying to do in the intro? I mean, really.
We did 7 times.
Did you just call Omega Honey? It sounded like you just called Omega Honey.
So. I didn't. This asshole, this Mr. No Show himself, Jacob DDS.
Hello, ladies.
So, how was that family mood? Oh, that's for. Let's talk to the winner, Ned Jester. How is it to how does it feel to be King of Wu?
Let's see, I believe the Olympic theme would be most appropriate. But I'll spare you. It feels very good to be King of Wu, and I thank Mr. Yankum DDS for not showing up and probably making the game a lot easier.
I would like to point out that the president of Russia does not recognize Netchester as king.
Well, yes, but there's also the fact that he doesn't recognize any gay bars in his own city, but we won't go there.
Well, speaking of gay bars, let's talk with a man who's very familiar with gay bars. R&D, how you doing, buddy?
I was gonna say something here, but then I was too busy enjoying professional wrestling.
Enjoying professional wrestling ever. What are you? Some sort of simpleton.
I'm a wrestling fan. The last one on the internet.
God forbid.
Oh, there we go.
So speaking of the last internet fan, the last wrestling fan on the internet, PW Insider reports that currently Daniel Bryan's role at WrestleMania will be a singles match with Sheamus. With Sheamus playing off their 18-second match at WrestleMania 28 and the dark match the year before. Although officials reacted to the Royal Rumble crowd, there are no plans to change this of the main event of Batista versus Orton. The word is Batista may turn heel after the event. After being examined by the WWE doctor, the call was made for Hulk Hogan not to be in the match or do anything physical at all, including something as simple as throwing a punch. Rumblings that Ultimate Warrior could return for a match, possibly taking Goldberg's place to face Ryback at the event. I think that would be a little too crazy.
I think that is the worst idea I have ever heard. And I was here when Gunnar suggested doing this show.
I'd like to see it, but I don't think they can trust the Ultimate Warrior at this point.
I don't think we could trust Ryback at this point with that match.
Can you imagine the injuries that would come out of that terrible, terrible match? Matthew would have material for Botchamanias for years to come from that one match.
Oh, sad but true. I mean, just look at what Ryback did last night, for crying out loud.
Yes, indeed. Look what Ryback did for last night. Ugh. But hey, you know, I'm not gonna lie. His little spat there with Batista in the middle wasn't terrible. That might be a nice summer feud.
Yeah, one that we could hopefully get over with quickly, but no. Batista's gotta be in the main event picture. Okay, hold it for later, hold it for later.
I don't know. Seems like... It just seems a little illogical to me, the whole progression of this whole thing. You know? I mean, in a company that has, you know, John Cena front and center, which makes sense. But then you've got Brian and his reactions, but they seem so determined to sort of just sweep it under the rug a little bit, you know? And, you know, I'm not saying Daniel Bryan needs to be John Cena, you know, nothing of the sort. But, you know, I mean, consider the fact that he lost to Bray Wyatt, clean, mind you. Now he's going to be in the Chamber match, which he likely will not win. And then a match with Sheamus, which has a smidge of history to it, but at the same time, it requires Sheamus being heel, and then it requires, you know, I guess people reacting to it so strongly in the middle of it. I assume it'll be toward the middle of the card. But I don't know. It kind of reeks of lost potential is all. Did we bring up that the potential Elimination Chamber matches, by the way? Del Rio and Batista possibly scheduled for a singles match, and the Wyatt family versus the Shield, and CM Punk versus Kane as possibilities.
That should be interesting. I think the Wyatt family versus the Shield was the feud that most of us wanted going into WrestleMania. I think that hot-shotting it and showing it off in 4 weeks, when they did something that really didn't make much sense, you know. Sure, they attacked John Cena, but they screwed over the Shield at the same time. There wasn't much logic in that, in my estimation, because why would you attack a man when he's... Yeah.
Why?
That's exactly my point. They're
why
really
would
forcing
you...
these.
I'm sorry, why would you expect logic?
From WWE Creative, exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, let's skip on down. Speaking of a lack of logic, it seems that several people have been asked to contribute creatively to TNA lately, and Vince Russo is rumored to be one of them, as his name was copied on several recent emails. The Wolves almost won the TNA tag titles from the Bromans as their big debut, but writer Dave Lagana feels they've gotten the Bromans over as a team, so instead the Wolves might work with Daniels and Kazarian going forward. Although he's denied it on Twitter several times, it does appear that MVP will debut during the United Kingdom tour. TNA has joyously managed to secure more dates with Universal Studios up until May for their Impact tapings following that tour, including a pay-per-view taping. And it seems that Dixie Carter has recently had the TNA production team follow her around, putting together some kind of demo reel for a potential reality show. Apparently she tried to get on the Real Housewives of Nashville years ago, but never did.
I might have to start watching TNA again if there's the possibility of Fire Russo chants happening again.
Well, those always bring a smile to our faces.
No, thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Please go
you
away,
know,
all of it.
it's bad enough that TNA is losing what stars they have left, and I don't think it's going to be made any different by Russo coming in and trying to fuck the body of TNA, because it's just not getting any better.
Well, hopefully you get a little bit better with MVP. Anybody happy to see him back?
Yeah, you know, he's a pretty charismatic talent. Well, I think it's getting a little better in the sense that it seems like it's almost like the 11th hour, and they're forced to basically, you know, up until now, they didn't have tapings after the UK tour. They didn't know what they were going to do. They pretty much have to try something different. Although, you know, in typical one step forward, 3 steps back fashion, you've got Dixie Carter trying to finagle herself a reality show when, you know, even if she was interesting enough to have one, you know, her company is pretty much faded. You know, there are better things to worry about.
Well, that's probably why, because she knows her company is failing, and at this point, like most rats, she is ready to abandon ship before the drowning occurs.
The two things that'll survive after the nuclear holocaust: cockroaches and reality TV shows.
I'm gonna wash my fucking hands of this and go on to the next news bit. WWE is planning on running a bunch of live feeds the week before WrestleMania to entice viewers and test streaming. They also plan on going out of their way to counter-program on the network, such as airing the live NXT special during an episode of Impact. The New York Post reports that NBC Universal is pondering creating a physical WWE Hall of Fame at Orlando Universal's theme park as part of a pitch to retain Raw and SmackDown during TV negotiations. Although they aren't happy about pay-per-views on WWE Network, Comcast has no plans to pull them, and it'll be harder for DirecTV to do so if no one else does. WWE is asking for more than twice their current TV rates, around $190 million a year per package. They're also taking steps against outside promotions running events in Santa Clara during WrestleMania 31, issuing no compete edicts with all city facilities and major motel chains. So basically what you're telling me, WWE, is that you're on the rise, you're expanding, and if we don't like it, well, we could find something. Oh, that's right. There isn't anything else in town.
You know, I'm going to say this. When I went to, I was already there. When I went to Mania 26, I attended some of the other shows that were in town at the time. One of them was Dragon Gate USA's Mercury Rising. I was probably about as underwhelmed as I could possibly get. For 2 reasons. One, they totally didn't think about the logistics of where they put it, and just seemed to go with wherever they could rent a facility, which was at the Celebrity Theater, a place that's mostly made for, you know, stand-up comedy and things like that, not set up for wrestling events. And then 2, they ran the same old crap that they've been running before, and they're still running today. The main event was a 6-man tag match with Yamato, Naruki Doi, and BXB Hulk, who's probably the most overrated Japanese worker of all time. Anyways, the NFL doesn't like when you run football events on Sundays. Why would the WWE?
Well, it makes sense, but it's also kind of a little mean-spirited. You'd think you know, it makes sense not to have competitors, but at the same time, if it's sort of an event, you know, you got to think about the kind of wrestling fans that will travel to WrestleMania, you know, across the world. In fact, you know, the fact that if it's more of a summit, then you know it's more of a reason. Not that WrestleMania isn't a big draw in its own right, but
the more wrestling, the better throughout the week. I think it's just that simple.
At the same time, to RMD's point, you know, when we had like WrestleCon last year, you know, that was a little bit more together. But this year, it seems things are a little more disjointed. You know, I think there's a WrestleCon, but I don't think it's a bunch of companies coming together. I think it's like, you know, Dragon Gate and Evolve doing their thing, and I think Shimmer might have a show, and, you know, it doesn't seem quite as organized. You haven't heard as much about it. You know. So it's kind of lame on WWE's part as a wrestling fan. But,
it's lame.
You know,
that means that, you know, you're just going to be stuck in smaller events and venues, and they're blocking basically the independent wrestling con to do what they're supposed to do, which is offer an alternative. Mind you, they're in New Orleans this year, or excuse me, they're in San Francisco for WrestleMania 31. I'm sure there's more than enough venues in you know, to be able to run a wrestling show or 6.
yeah, I'm not so sure about New Orleans, despite what a town it was. You know, it's not like New York, New Jersey, but, you know.
Right.
Anyway, now this is big news. Why didn't we put this sooner? Sting made 2 rare live event appearances recently for TNA because he owed dates on his contract, which is actually expiring soon. And PW Insider reports, confirms what Figure 4's been saying, that Sting has in fact been negotiating with WWE officials to maybe finally come in to the company. Supposedly they're about 2 weeks away from making a final decision on whether he'll come in or not. The feeling sort of being that, you know, if it's going to happen at all, this is the time. You know, he's seen as one of the biggest faces the company's never had. Also the face of WCW to some degree, would of course help with the network promotion. Speaking of, we also have Kurt Angle. Many believe he could return to the company once his deal expires toward the end of the year. Although he would probably most likely fail any physical and couldn't actually wrestle, but could be used as a trainer instead.
Kurt Angle should not be getting back into a wrestling ring.
Yeah, too beat up.
It'd be
I don't
nice
mind if he's a trainer.
It'd be nice to have him back, even if it's just for his Hall of Fame induction.
So, Sting in WWE. Are we ready for this?
Meh, it's not going to be what we want.
Okay, it's 2014, right? Late January 2014. I can say this with all confidence. It's been 15 years now that the internet has been predicting that Sting is weeks away from joining WWE.
This does seem to come around just about every WrestleMania, doesn't it?
That's because every WrestleMania game, that's when his deal's up.
Yeah, that's when he would do it. That's when his deal is usually up. He keeps re-signing these one-year deals with TNA, so it's not like it's completely unfounded. But the reality is, you know, sort of like with TNA going out of business entirely. You know, the more the years go along, the more possibility there is, just because of the circumstances. You know, with TNA and their, you know, like I said, you know, they went out on the road and it didn't quite work. Now they're kind of struggling to stay in one spot with Universal again. You know, there's lots of money problems. I mean, guys like AJ Styles leaving the company, and you know, with Sting again, it's kind of we're kind of seeing a bit of a renaissance here in WWE of all these people coming back. You know, Hogan's supposedly coming back, Ultimate Warrior's on good terms with him again. You saw Jake the Snake Roberts at Old School, so. And a lot of it revolves around the network, which is a big thing that, you know, was also supposed to happen for years, but is now finally happening.
Ultimate Warrior went into the Hall of Fame. Sting can join the WWE. I'm not saying that it's guaranteed to happen, but I'm saying that we should stop talking about it like, you know, oh, what if? Because it's just a matter of time and, you know, how much money he's actually going to milk.
I will say that if Sting does join, it'll be one of those deals where it's really shocking to see him, and it's an attraction, but it won't be, you know, I don't see him being a regular participant. He'll kind of be like Brock Lesnar, I think, where he might have a big match here and there, but it won't be like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Alright, moving on. The original Sin Cara sat down with Luchasaurus Teresa Seattle and claimed that he owns the Sin Cara name, gimmick, and mask. He also claimed that not knowing English wasn't a problem, feeling you don't need to communicate in the ring since the wrestling tells the story. He's expected to eventually end up in AAA since CMLL has a new Mystico character, and he left there on bad terms. F4W Online claims WWE has already given up on Unico replacing him as the character, but will keep him around for appearances and promotion. So basically what you're telling me is that Unico isn't even good enough to be Sin Cara? This is going to be a curse, isn't it?
Oh my god!
Yeah. The first part, of course, Mystico put himself over. That's no big surprise there. But the second part, mark the tape, I'm calling dirt sheets.
Okay, to be clear, what are you calling dirt sheets on?
About Hunico not having any confidence in playing the character of Sin Cara. If they didn't have any confidence in him playing Sin Cara, why would they team him up with Rey Mysterio and put him on Raw?
I think it's a case of not... They already sort of don't care, I guess. I think they like the character, it's just they don't really...
It looks like shit.
Yeah, they don't really care about Hunico, and I think the whole Sin Cara experiment from the get-go was something where they kind of expected him to come in and just... One of those deals where they expect him to come in and just be a star instantly. And you know, and you know, I saw it. You know, when I would go to Raw, there would be like, you know, Hispanic families with Mystico stuff, and you know, people knew who he was, but then you know, he didn't adapt to the style, and he was pretty headstrong, and I don't know. I think they like the idea of Sin Cara better than the execution, I guess is what I'm saying.
And those times he almost got himself executed like in the Rumble. Oy.
And I'm 95% certain he doesn't own the Sin Cara name.
Oh no, I can't believe Trips would be that stupid as to not place everything Sin Cara under WWE.
Oh, absolutely. That would never ever happen. There's just no way that anybody at WWE is so unsavvy business-wise that they would allow that.
I think he thinks that because everybody knows that he went and became Sin Cara, that's kind of how it works in Mexico, and people don't really go after you for that. But I think if he was, and you know, there's already a lot of promotions down there, I hear, advertising him when he's not going to appear, which is pretty common, I hear. But I think if WWE really did send their legal team after him, it'd be a different tune, you know.
It would be a much different tune, as in, no mas, no mas.
Alright.
Yeah, moss you up.
Alright, oh, it's my turn, isn't it? We'll wrap it up here. It says that John Cena at a recent interview said a key locker room rule is not to rib unless you're willing to be ribbed yourself. Some rumors recently this week that Dolph Ziggler's sort of de-push might have come after he made some comments during SummerSlam. Comments which are basically somewhat aimed at Randy Orton when he said he's not afraid of taller people, you know. I dare you to put me in a back alley with Randy Orton or someone like that. And ESPN, or excuse me, Fox Sports, had an interview with Denver Broncos middle linebacker Paris Lanham, the only current NFL player to have the distinction of having played in the XFL. When asked about the league, he says he really doesn't remember much about it because he tries to live in the moment.
So what you're saying is that he lives in the moment and he doesn't remember much about it? So you're saying that he's Jeff Hardy?
Ah, concussive head injuries. There's the winner.
Pretty soon he's going to be calling the Denver Broncos fans his creatures of the night. And we're going to have a whole bunch of fun with that. Okay.
I think the Seahawks are going to win the Super Bowl.
Former athlete Paris Lennon, may I add.
What about Dolph's in the doghouse?
The doghouse is... There are two doors on the doghouse. One is for CM Punk, the other is for Dolph Ziggler.
Looks like.
It's neither than the That's a bunch of ass.
Yeah, if it's not CM Punk at the doghouse, it's Dolph Ziggler. The dirt sheets have been on this for, what, 2.5, 3 years now?
Just about.
Nothing new here. Yeah, I think the silence says it all, so,
Yep. That means it's time for the 15-minute time limit.
Do we have 15 minutes for the 15 minutes?
We have 17 minutes and 15 seconds.
Cool, can I do 2 minutes then?
Alright, then it's time for the 15-minute time limit of this week. We were talking about the Royal Rumble match and the results thereof. So, let's start with the undercard. New Age Outlaws, new tag team champions. How do we feel about this?
I'm glad they can work. I'm glad they look great. I'm glad they were able to go up against Cody and Goldust and put on a pretty good opening match, even if it was a dark match.
I don't know if it should have been... This should have been the end of the Rhodes title reign the way it was, you know, on a pre-show against the Outlaws who, you know, no reason to hate the fact that they won them, because they are still a pretty charismatic team, and they do look good, and they do work good, and they didn't, you know, they didn't embarrass themselves or anything. And they can be tag champs for quite a while. I'm just saying, you know, with as big as the Rhodes tag reign kind of became, I'm not sure if this was kind of that moment.
Well, let's be honest here. The chances of the WWE giving any real fucks about the tag titles is pretty slim.
They are kind of back to one and dones with them, where, you know, one team challenges and probably loses, and then
Next.
you know.
Okay, next, let's see here. Bray Wyatt defeats D-Bry. Bray Wyatt and D-Bry had the match of the night, and it made Bray, in my opinion.
I'll admit I thought this was going to be a pretty terrible match to cap off what was a pretty lame feud, but, you know, they proved me wrong, I think. Say what you will about Daniel Bryan and where he's going and this and that, but they will allow him to do what he does best, which is put on a really great match, and he really did have that with Bray, who kind of held his own in a way, you know. I mean, he didn't, you know, it wasn't terrible like I thought it was going to be.
Nope, it wasn't terrible. Bray is actually a decent wrestler, go figure. Anybody else? I don't want to step any toes here.
I thought it was pretty good.
I will. Yeah, go ahead.
Alright, let's step on some toes. Bork Laser defeats Big Show. Haha, Bork beat up Big.
Not only beat up, he freaking destroyed 2 folding chairs and was on his way to destroying a third on him. I mean, this is where the saying, beat it like a rented mule, comes from, for God's sake.
No, that's not where it comes from.
What a weird match. You know, I guess it was supposed to remind us that Brock is a monster and everything, which it did what it was supposed to do, but it was really weird, you know, the way he beat him up pre-match, and then the match wasn't even really a match. They kind of show-punched him, and then they kind of tangled for a minute or two, and Brock got the F5 and everything. So, you know. The Royal Rumble is my favorite event of the year. But the undercard is pretty traditionally unimportant. I don't know, something was really off about this year in terms of, it just seemed like everything was a little, except for the Bryan Wyatt match, everything was a little too kind of predictable, expected, you kind of already knew. You know, there's only so many people who can win the Royal Rumble anyway, but this year it really felt like, you know.
And nobody gave a fuck about anything else. And everybody cared about either Daniel Bryan or nothing. Speaking of things that people didn't care about, Randy Orton defeats John Cena to retain the WWE World Heavyweight Championship after shenanigans involving the Wyatts. Once again, not making sense. Why would you go after John Cena? Why? I mean, I understand. There's no time to be able to develop that. However, it's been the pay-per-view and the Raw. Where's my explanation, please? Or at least a semblance of one.
A little sign on the road, for crying out loud.
My problem with the Wyatts, beyond the fact that I think, you know, Harper's the only one who really is a decent wrestler. Well, I guess, you know, Wyatt kind of proved his merit during this pay-per-view, and the fact that they're kind of pretty cliche doomsday if you're into that kind of thing. The problem is they just don't have a direction. And, you know, you can argue that a crazy cult-like faction does random things because, you know, they're crazy. But it doesn't really hold a lot of water when you consider, you know, they attacked Bryan and did that whole thing for not really a good reason, and now they're attacking Cena because he's, I guess, you know, a peg higher than Bryan on the affluence scale or whatever. It seems like they want to get these guys over so bad, but they just have no idea what to do with them, and it really shows.
Well, unless they actually go over Cena, they're not going to get over this way. And you know that's not going to happen. Cena is going to get put in a friggin' handicapped tornado match, and he's going to beat all three of them single-handedly, overcoming the odds.
By the way, I was surprised that Wyatt beat Bryan clean. I mean, that was pretty unexpected.
I just thought it was... Look, it's nothing new that I think Bray Wyatt can't wrestle. He couldn't wrestle the last couple of times he got called up to the main roster. He couldn't wrestle in NXT. And this whole James Mitchell rehash is just not, it's nothing new. And, you know, without a guy like Daniel Bryan to carry him through a match like that, then what's the point? Let's just put Luke Harper in and everything and let him and, you know, Norris run through as a tag team and send Bray back down to Orlando.
I think at this point you wouldn't be able to send him down to Orlando because, you know, he's, quote, that terrible. But I didn't think that Bray got carried there. I think that he actually got a way better match than, you know, than what he would normally do. I mean, you gotta remember, dude, he's like our age, younger than you, I think, in my age, just about. And he's having matches like that on Raw. Yeah, he actually, yes, he is my age. 26.
Yes, but how long has he been down there with his brother?
He's been in wrestling since, like, he was a kid.
Yeah, and he still sucks. At some point, you've got to get off the pot.
Well, I'll say this. You know, he managed to have a pretty good match with Bryan. You know, whoever you want to give credit to for that. If he has a match with Cena, it's gonna suck. It's gonna be awful. It's gonna be exactly what I thought that match was gonna be.
You know what? Yoshihiko could put on a 5-star match with Daniel Bryan, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, the Rumble, ladies and gentlemen, this is the reason that we came in here. This is the reason that we tuned in to the pay-per-view. This is what it all leads up to right here. The Women's WrestleMania begins at the Royal Rumble. And apparently, everybody and their dog hated it.
Alright, give your soundboard a rest for 2 minutes, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, see, here's the reason. Like I was saying earlier, there was only 2 guys going into the match who could win it. Batista or CM Punk. And then, as I think Yankum predicted last week, Sheamus did enter. He didn't win, obviously. Batista did win, as I predicted.
NetJester predicted that Sheamus would enter the Rumble and win.
I predicted Big E Langston and fell flat.
See, he did pretty bad there, actually. He for what I thought Big E could do, he got kind of shuffled into the end there and into a clusterfuck, basically.
Yeah, I don't even remember him in there.
Not as bad as what happened to Rey Mysterio. He got screwed. And they could have put anybody in there. They could have sent Jerry Lawler in there to catch all those boos at 30, because the entire crowd was unhappy that Dick Butt wasn't coming into the Rumble, obviously.
What they should have done is what they should have done, if they actually had any fucking sense, or if they wanted to play off the Triple H comment from the Raw the night afterwards, is they have Bad News Barrett come out. You say, I'm afraid I've got some bad news.
Good God.
Daniel Bryan isn't in the Royal Rumble. I am. And then he goes in and gets eliminated immediately.
Yeah, that would have been
Pretty
funny.
good, I think.
And then nuclear fucking heat. And
Bad News Barrett is a push, yeah.
Yeah, that would have gotten them some really good heat. But, of course, they had to waste it on Rey Mysterio, because, as far as I could tell, Rey Mysterio still has nude photos of somebody's wife in a compromising position with a senator or something. And as such, he keeps getting
it's because he sells masks to the little Jimmies, and they like that money.
I don't think you were talking about it. I don't think you were talking about a congressman. It might have been a governor, or at least a former governor, and it might have also been a genius, or at least his brother. I'm just saying.
And speaking of congressmen and senators, did anybody get the vibe that Kane, who looked incredible last night, the best shape of his life, for God's sake. Unfortunately, he came out in his suit pants and his suit shoes, but that's neither here nor there. He looked incredible, like that freaking Senator Armstrong from Metal Gear Rising, for God's sake. Hell of a showing.
He was in much better shape in 1999 and 2000 when he had the tank top and the half mask. But still, he looked really good.
Yeah,
I
he
want to
looked
see where this
incredible.
goes. And
He actually had abs last Sunday.
yeah, that was strange. Seeing Kane with abs is a little odd.
Yeah.
To say that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I heard from way back when, I think it was, it might have actually been Armando Estrada who made a comment that, you know, when you're actually on the road and you're wrestling a match basically every show, it's actually harder to maintain a physique like that than it is if you're like Kane is now. Like he's traveling and everything, but he's not actually wrestling. He's doing his, you know, superintendent thing, and so, you know, he has more time to kind of define himself in the gym and stuff like that.
Armando Estrada, there's a name we haven't heard for a while.
I used to go to his restaurant, Baby Steak and Lemonade, 83rd and Union Hills, Glendale, Arizona. Great place. Anyways, is anybody surprised that Batista won?
No.
No, not really.
And that is the thing that's got everybody pissed, to be perfectly honest. Like Gunn said, it could only be two guys going in. And everybody in the crowd knew it. Everybody in the WWE creative knew it. And then they should have been smart enough to say, if only two guys can win it, then why don't we throw a curveball at the people and make them happy and not have the giant gargantuan behemoth who obviously has pictures of a compromising nature of somebody else as a winner.
If Batista wasn't
Here's exactly
why
why-
he wouldn't be in the company right now.
Here's why Batista won. Ladies and gentlemen, Batista is a greedy fuck. This is not surprising, as is, you know, we've come to know, Batista's in this for the money. I mean, his heel character back in 2010 was actually him. Or, you know, the amplified version of him. So this is the reason why he won the Royal Rumble. Because I believe there is some sort of contractual obligation to Batista to give him a main event push and a guaranteed WWE title run at some point or another during his final hurrah in the WWE. Note, note, we said this back in the end of the year last year when it was rumored that he was being signed. If you do not remember this, go back into our episodes, and we definitely covered this. So, you're seeing it come to fruition. We've all forgotten, and the reason why Daniel Bryan didn't win the Rumble was because they're going to get him in another way. I do not believe that the Sheamus match will happen. I do not believe that at this point that they would be stupid enough to pass up on an opportunity as large as Austin 316 at this point. If they are, then I hate to say this, but I will not be purchasing the WWE Network, and I will be watching just as much wrestling as I am right now, basically. And
I will,
I'm not saying
because I get to watch all the cool stuff that used to happen.
well, it's all the cool stuff that used to happen, but the problem becomes then, you know, that they're not building WrestleMania toward, like you said last week, they're not building WrestleMania towards anything worth a damn. They're building it towards little Jimmies and and people that are more casual fans.
That almost sounds familiar, like something video games fans have been yelling about for years now.
Yeah, it's time. Fuck. My bad. So that's it for the 15-minute time limit, and apparently I just went on a rant and didn't look at the time. And apparently I'm the only one with the soundboard. Yankum, we're going to break, right?
Yep, we're going to take a break, and we will be right back with Part 2, Segment 3, The Kayfabe Issues.